Parents were frustrated as well, obviously. The problem was, because of the unique circumstances of northern India, where many of you have been on NIDs. How many people here have been on an NID or been out? That's probably more than my department, so I asked them. I'm just joking, they've all been out there. They're out there now. You've been to more than me, though. But in the NIDs, they're reaching the children, but the problem in northern India is that there's so many people packed into such a small area that the vaccine does not work as well as it should have, first of all. This was an important finding a couple of years ago that was published in one of the most important science magazines in the world when they found this. And the second thing was, because there's so many people packed in as they are, the virus circulates very, very easily. Normally it's a bit hard for the virus to get from one person to the next. When you pack them all together like that, with no sewage, you can imagine it moves an awful lot more easily. So we had a technical challenge in northern India. Our vaccine wasn't able to knock it out. And that's why, ladies and gentlemen, over the last 12 months, we've seen one of the most important developments in the whole history of this program. The left-hand corner of this map is Uttar Pradesh, the West Uttar Pradesh. It is from there that polio viruses keep reinfecting the rest of India, including Bihar, also spread to Angola, DR Congo, Namibia. That is the heartland where we have not been able to stop polio, and it's where we were beginning to think, is this a technical flaw in our strategy? Is there some reason we can't stop polio here? Because if there was, then we were in real trouble. So what we did then was over the last couple of years, we developed in record time with the help of Rotarians, we put some of the initial funding behind it, the Gates Foundation and others, the new monovalent polio vaccines that you've heard about, which attack just one virus instead of all three at once. But that gives you a bigger bang for your buck when you go after that virus. And then we also tried some new tactics in terms of how we would use it. And then, this is one of the most important developments in the history of the eradication initiative. We interrupted indigenous polio virus transmission in Uttar Pradesh last year, demonstrating once and for all, undoubtedly, there was a better word that I can't remember on 4 hours sleep, that Rotarians' vision of a polio-free world was right and is achievable. We can eliminate this disease anywhere now. And this is important. I guess you got that this is important part without me explaining why. The reason it's so important is there's been 6 eradication initiatives in history. Everybody knows about smallpox because it was successful. Well, the first 3 failed. And they failed because there were technical flaws with the strategy. And when you try to eradicate a disease, you're pushing right out to the frontiers of what we know in science. And what we found with the other eradication initiatives is we didn't know everything and we didn't know enough. With polio now, that is different. We know enough to finish the job of eradication. This was an extremely important development. However, progress is fragile. Virus got from Bihar back into West UP, so we're pounding it again right now with the same vaccine and the same tactics. It will get stopped again, but it reminds us that this is a very tough disease that we're trying to finish. We're also going to throw a few more things at it right now in the next 3 months in this area to add some insurance so that this doesn't happen again. But there is no doubt now the job of eradication can be finished. Next slide. So the most dangerous of the 2 remaining polio viruses, type 1 and type 3. Of type 1, the most dangerous, it's now in retreat in India, the most important reservoir for us in the world, and in most parts of Africa, with the exception only of Nigeria. If we can get type 1 finished in India, again early next year, right across all of India at the same time, and then type 3 should follow quite quickly, we will have passed the major milestone to get the momentum to finish the job completely. So we have made major progress in the last year. We still have a few corners of outbreaks where we're trying to finish, and I was just talking to Ezra, who's about to take your 16th, 9th team back to Ethiopia to help motivate, keep Rotarians there on the job because they're reinfected again. And that role of Rotarians, by the way, is so important to getting the job finished. But ladies and gentlemen, this map is a map that I don't think we ever thought we would see in history with with so few docs, so few children paralyzed by this disease. Now, one thing I need to warn you about is when you get down to this low level of disease, and you push it right down, remember we started at 500,000 cases probably. We say 350,000 a year, it was probably more. When you push it down to this level, you're either going to go from there to zero or back to hundreds of thousands. It's going to vacillate up and down until you get down to zero. And I know for Rotarians, we watch the case counts, oh my gosh, they've had 2 more cases in India. That is not as important as where those cases are, etc. It's going to vacillate like that, and we shouldn't be getting spooked by that. That's not the big picture. The big picture is what's happening geographically and our ability to tackle the problem that we're facing to get the job finished. Next slide, please. One thing you should also be aware of, while Nigeria, I should point out on a previous slide, has got the most cases in the world right now, most type 1 cases, and many people look at that, I've heard Rotarians look at that and say, oh my God, with that many cases, it's going to take forever to get the job finished. It's not true. In Africa, for reasons that we only partially understand, it is much easier to eradicate polio than it is in Asia. On average, in southern Nigeria, kids have had 4 doses of the oral polio vaccine versus 8 doses in most of Asia to stop transmission. It's much easier to stop it. Once we get it right, it will go very fast. In southern part of Nigeria, they stopped polio after they got infected in about 12 months. It can go very, very quickly when the political will is there to get the job finished. The challenge now is getting the vaccine. We've fixed the problem of the vaccine failure, but we still have a problem of failure to vaccinate in a few countries, and that's what we're now determined to change.